fourth Apitao's for the fourth Apitao's Academic Forum. Our guest speaker is President of Apitao, Professor Jihad Hamdan. First of all, let us give a brief about Professor Hamdan, and I think all of you know who he is. He obtained his PhD in linguistics from the University of Reading in 1994. He is currently Professor of Linguistics and Translation at the University of Jordan since 1994. He served as president of Zarqa University in Jordan for about 2 years. And he is currently president of the Association of Professors of English Language and Translation at Arab Universities, Apitao. It was, of course, since the 28th of March, 2012 to present. And he is the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Arabic English Studies, IJAS, and he worked also as chief field education program of the field education program at UNRWA for 3 years. And at the same time, he was the vice chairman of the Board of Trustees at the Faculty of Educational Sciences and Arts, UNRWA, for also 3 years. He served as member of the Education Board, Minister of Education in Jordan between 2013 and 2016. And he has been serving for about 30 years he has been working as a simultaneous interpreter for about 30 years. Also, he has worked as member and chair of academic program evaluation and evaluation ad hoc committees for the Higher Education Accreditation Commission in Jordan. And he is also author and co-author of many published papers in ISI and Scopus indexed journals. Professor Hamdan's talk today is about forensic linguistics, and the title of the presentation is Forensic Linguistics, Sharing a Wild Experience. As we all know, through the talk with Professor Jihad Hamdan, who taught this course for several times, forensic linguistics, which is of course a branch of applied linguistics, is known as legal linguistics. It is the application of linguistic knowledge, methods, and insights to the forensic context of law, language, crime investigation, trial, and the judicial procedure. It is as we mentioned, it is also a branch of applied linguistics. In this forum, Professor Hamdan will be talking about the history of forensic linguistics, its development, how it began and where, in which countries. Then he will be talking about the forensic text types like suicide letters, ransom demands, social media, etc. He will then talk about using the linguistic evidence for legal proceedings. After that, he will conclude with examples to illustrate this field of study and how it works. Professor Hamdan, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Rababa, for the very friendly and professional words at the same time. Like to greet my colleagues and friends and welcome them all again to this activity, hoping that they will continue to support us, not just by attending our seminars, but by also taking the lead in our activities. And this is an invitation. I'm renewing the invitation for colleagues to suggest topics and speakers for this academic forum to keep it moving and going up high. What is forensic linguistics? Forensic linguistics is a relatively young branch of applied linguistics, just like what my friend has suggested. And it's definitely younger than the presenter, that is, than me, and then Professor Rababa. I am 68, Rababa is 50, or less than 50, so definitely younger.
50 plus.
Yeah, younger than Professor Rababa, maybe around my age. But practitioners here use linguistics or linguistic knowledge to analyze texts of criminal nature. Now, what is a text that can be considered subject to forensic analysis? In reality, any text can be subject to forensic analysis. It depends on how we look at this text and why we want to analyze it, for what purpose or what end. If a text is somehow or somewhat implicated in a legal nature, in a legal context, then it is a forensic text. So in this sense, any text can really be a candidate for linguistic analysis. Just to move on. These are examples of texts that can be analyzed from a forensic perspective: emergency calls, ransom demands, and other threat communications, suicide letters, hate mail and hate speech, final death row statements, confessions, and denials of public persons. These are just examples of texts that can be analyzed from this perspective. A brief history is due. And as you can see in the slide, Evans and Zwartwyk. I mean, these are two important people who contributed in different ways. It's unfortunate that one of them contributed in a very sad manner to the emergence and development of forensic linguistics. That is Evans, or Timothy John Evans. So forensic linguistics came into being with the publication of a classic study on these statements by Zwartwyk. Zwartwyk, all of us know who Zwartwyk is. And that was a long time ago, really, in the 50s of the 20th century. Timothy had been accused of murdering his wife and murdering his daughter, and he was called by the police. He gave two statements. At a later stage, he tried to, and he made confessions, but he tried at a later stage to retract these confessions, but he was not really, he was not allowed to do so because the judge was fully convinced that Timothy was really the murderer, and he was hanged in 1950. In reality, the perpetrator was his neighbor, John Christie, who was executed in 1953. But Christie was probably was more intelligent than Evans, and Christie had duped Evans into believing that he was the killer, when in fact he was not the killer. Now, in his analysis, Zwartwyk demonstrated the presence of two different registers in the statements. The importance of this case lies in Zwartwyk's pioneering technique in analyzing textual alteration. And actually, this means that he examined the text carefully for certain features, and he noticed that there are significant differences in the textual structure of these two statements. While one of them was more or less closer to the police register. The other one was somewhat different. And when he examined the history of Evans and his biography, he discovered that he was really illiterate. He could hardly write his name, could hardly read a sentence. Now, how come that this illiterate person can produce such statements? Now, what really explains the whole story is the law at the time, the judge's rule, as it was called. Now, according to the provisions of that law, the defendant was asked to go on speaking following a question, and he was not supposed to be interrupted by the interrogators. The interrogators, the police, had to take down his statements and word it in a way that should reflect what was said, and then offer it for signature. And it seems that what was done was totally different. The statements that were taken by the police were written in a way that is totally different from the way Evans could produce, and thus he was really condemned. And the jury at the trial found him guilty, and then he was executed. Now, years later, there was a campaign to requesting a pardon for Evans, and the campaign succeeded, and Evans was posthumously pardoned. But as is clear, he had already passed away. But his case contributed to the emergence of the field, because in Svartvik's report, the phrase forensic linguistics was used for the first time, and hence the major contribution of Svartvik to the field. There was another case, Derek Bentley. Derek Bentley was hanged again in 1953 for the murder of a policeman during a burglary attempt. I think all of us are aware of the phrase that has become really well known over the years, the ambiguous phrase, let him have it, let him have it. Now, let him have it is really ambiguous. While they were trying to escape, Bentley has a friend with him, Craig, and Craig uttered this statement or gave this instruction to Bentley. Bentley immediately shot one policeman and shot him dead. Now, the judge examined the Lord Chief Justice Goddard had described Bentley as mentally aiding Craig, mentally aiding the murder of Sidney Miles. And Goddard sentenced Bentley to be hanged, despite a recommendation for mercy by the jury. And then again, years later, there was a campaign also, and the campaign continued for more than 45 years. And at the end, there was again a pardon, and not just that, the capital punishment was also removed. And the history of hanging people for their words or for their alleged confessions had to turn, and now, thanks to forensic linguistics, there are chances for defendants to be, and for their statements to be examined by experienced people, by forensic linguists, and they had more chances to win. Forensic linguistics in the States, in Australia, and probably before, I think I'm moving in the wrong direction. In the USA, the rise of forensic linguistics may date back to 1963, when Ernesto Miranda was convicted and sentenced in an armed robbery. However, he appealed to the ruling, and he claimed that he did not understand his right to remain silent or his right to ask for a lawyer or to have a lawyer with him during interrogation. The Court of Appeals overturned the ruling in 1966, and relevant legislation was enacted under the name Miranda Rights. Now, Miranda Rights, according to Miranda Rights, detainees can speak only if they wish to do so. They should also understand that anything they say can be used against them in court. McDonald's Corporation filed a case against a company, Quality Inns International, and this shows a shift in interest, a shift from authorship, in a sense, to another field, to trademarks. And McDonald's is a great company, a huge company, filed a case against Quality Inns International after the latter announced its intention of opening a chain of economy hotels to be called McSleep. Now, the plaintiff said that using the prefix Mac with unprotected words, ordinary words, like McFries and McNuggets, barred Quality Inns from use of Mac prefix. As you can see, this is a morphological issue. It's not a matter of it's not a matter of ownership. It's just it's just a matter of language, a matter of morphology, and because of this. Because of morphology, there was this case. Now, there were two linguists, really, who worked hard to defend Quality Inns International, and they said the fact that McDonald's had allowed such words like McFries and McNuggets to pass should also allow McSleep. But the judge, fortunately or unfortunately, the judge did not pass and accept their argument, and judgment was in favor of McDonald's. Is it the case that money was more powerful than linguistics? This is probably for some people to consider. Sometimes there's this clash between science and capital, between money and knowledge, and this is a case where money won and science lost. Let me just move on quickly. Forensic linguistics in Australia. Forensic linguistics in Australia has also a long history, and it began in the 80s of the last century. There was a special interest in the rights of the indigenous defendants. At the time, sociolinguistics was not making the advances it has made earlier. So at the time, there was a misconception of what really the term language and the term dialect, yes, where they meet and where they clash. So the idea was that the indigenous people, they speak a language or they speak a dialect that is really different from the dialect or the variety or spoken by the white people. it was assumed that they were speaking the same language, when in reality they were not speaking the same language. The language of the indigenous people showed differences, and thus, because of these differences, there were problems in taking down statements and in interpretation of these statements in court. Because of this, there was a need for competent interpreters in the two language forms. If there was really an intention to avoid miscarriage of justice. Let me continue. Hopefully that I'm making use of time properly. Foreign linguistics in Germany. Foreign linguistics here was initially interested in issues relating to libel and slander, as the same phrase or expression may convey different pragmatic functions. For me and for the course and for students of mine, some of them are here with us. While we were examining this really at the time in Jordan, there was a teacher in Shafa Badran in Amman, and the teacher happened to make a comment on a post by the former speaker of the upper house of parliament. He had a post, and it seems that she didn't like the post, or she wanted to criticize the post. She wanted to criticize the post, and she just made one comment, saying, "Ya hum malali." She wrote, "Ya hum malali," and the former speaker of parliament went mad and filed a case against her, claiming that she was humiliating him, and she was ridiculing him for no reason. And it was really a serious case. My students went and had an interview with the teacher, and we tried together to interpret the term "Ya hum malali." We discovered that the meaning was not really to attack the speaker, nor to ridicule the speaker. It was just sort of fun, rather than she was kidding, jokingly. It was said jokingly rather than for humiliation purposes. Anyway, that helped us a lot, really. We worked, and this issue has turned into a paper, which was published at a later stage into a Scopus Index journal, The Pragmatic Functions of Ya hum malali in Jordanian spoken Arabic. So there was such a thing, and now forensic linguistics in Australia went along these lines, different meanings of words, and how these words can sometimes lead to problems. Now, one important thing here, and I want to move and talk about Germany. Germany also, yes, was interested in something like this. And there was really a reference to two dissertations submitted by two twin sisters. The university questioned the authenticity of the two theses, because the previous academic performance of the two students was much better than what was reflected in the two theses. Now there was a suggestion that the suggestion was clear. In the language of thesis, is different from the language of oral performance in class and or even performance on tests, because the language of a thesis or thesis is technical, and thus the variation is very limited between the two sisters. A linguist intervened and suggested that the two sisters be examined orally rather than comparing their performance, their written performance on their dissertations, and which led to accusations of plagiarism. Now, foreign linguistics in the Arab world. Foreign linguistics in the Arab world, as you can tell, foreign linguists have already made their mark in Western countries. The concept of lawyers in the Arab world hiring such experts has not yet become part of the legal system. El-Sakran, and I want to release a secret, that El-Sakran submitted his paper to our journal, but unfortunately, harsh reviewers did not pass the paper, and it was accepted and published elsewhere. El-Sakran examines Arab lawyers' perceptions towards the use of forensic linguistic evidence in Arab in courts. Analysis shows that lawyers in Arab countries, although their readiness or despite their readiness to use medical and other expert witnesses in courts to support their cases, are still reluctant to use the services of language specialists, that is, forensic linguists. For they view this as an indication of a lawyer's incompetence in native language interpretation, and thus they still refrain from seeking advice and support from forensic linguists. In fact, we held 2 seminars at the University of Jordan, and we invited lawyers to these seminars. The lawyers were not really in agreement about the role of a foreign linguist. They were discussing this issue in the context where we do not really have forensic linguists in Jordan. I wish to highlight here that we do not have any course in forensic linguistics at the BA level, nor do we have such a course at the MA level. We have only one course at the PhD level, and it is an eclectic course. I examined the study plans of PhD students, PhD programs in the region. And again, it's unfortunate that such a course is not cited among the courses included in the study plan of these programs. So there is really a need probably for more awareness. We need to promote awareness of the importance of forensic linguistics and foreign linguists. There are cases, of course, we know that there are cases where forensic linguists are needed in Jordan. And I'll come after a short while, to one contribution of the students of this course that shows clearly the need for such linguists. Forensic linguistics and authorship. The Bible was probably the first text whose authorship was contested, when the German priest Witter pointed out in 1711 that the different names for divinity in the Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible, believed, of course, to be written by Moses, could indicate that several authors had contributed to it. And the same thing rose again in 1785. James Wilmot suggested that Bacon was the real author of the Shakespeare plays, but did not publish his views. Shakespeare, as you know, died on April 23rd, 1616. The controversy surfaced in 1805 when James Cowell presented his views and concerns to the Ipswich Philosophical Society. Now, at a time, there was a row about this, but now people have stopped discussing whether Shakespeare was there or was not there, and accept the reality that there is a rich product by a person called Shakespeare, and this product is precious and is worth of examination and studying, in addition to enjoyment and pleasure, rather than going into unnecessary discussions about whether Shakespeare was there or was not there. Shakespeare as a playwright is there, whether the person was Bacon or otherwise. We are happy with this legacy.
Professor Jihad, now the time is 6:35.
Yeah. How many minutes left?
You know, according to our agreement, about 20 minutes.
Okay, that's great.
40.
Yes.
I mean,
what is
if you will take 40 minutes.
Yes. Hopefully less than
15
yes.
to 20 minutes.
Hopefully less than 40 minutes.
All
What's
right.
the linguistic fingerprint? A linguistic fingerprint, in its absolute sense, means that each individual uses language in a different way, in a unique way. And that this difference can be identified, and that this difference is, if it can be identified easily and surely, then it looks like a fingerprint. Now, these claims cannot pass easily. In fact, we cannot find a person who has a unique style and who speaks or writes in a unique way that cannot be replicated or imitated by any other person. Maybe some 60, 70 years ago, things were different in the world because of education. At the time, those who were able to read and write were not the majority. And thus it was possible for some people to develop a specific style or a specific form of writing, a specific form of spelling. But thanks to the spread of education, this has come to an end. And now Professor Aziz Thabit in linguistics, he writes more or less the same way I write, the same way Professor Rababa writes. We use the same jargon. We more or less use the same similar structures. Similar hypotheses are tested and examined in similar ways. So the idea of having a unique speaker with unique features is no longer really entertained. What is more logical is to think of comparison rather than attribution. That is, we can think of a number of features. We can examine these features in candidate writers, if it's a written text. And if there is a suspect, we can maybe come close to saying that it could be the case that this given text is similar to this text that has been under examination. Perhaps the problem is with the word forensic, as it resonates with the ability to single out the perpetrator from the crowd to a high degree of accuracy, which is not really the case. Although forensic linguistics is a science in terms of seeking to obtain reliable results by the application of a sound method, we should avoid claiming that there are easy and automatic ways of identifying an author out of a crowd of authors. Author variation. We have intra-author variation versus this should be inter-author variation. Intra-author variation refers to one's texts being different or showing variation. That is, for instance, Rababa's texts vary, different one from another. This is intra, that is differences within the author, the same author, differences in texts written, produced by the same author. Inter-variation, it's different here. We talk about different authors with different texts and trying to see whether these texts are different or not different. Now, there are causes of intra-author variation. Remember, a minute ago, we were talking about not having a unique style. Now, the same person is producing a number of texts. Let's say the same novelist is producing 5 novels, 10 novels. If these novels are examined, there is a likelihood to see variation, a variation within the same. Why? There are causes, some suggested causes. Genre is an important cause. Charles Dickens wrote, for instance, in several different genres, and thus texts in these genres exhibit considerable variation because of the number of genres used. Text type, personal letters include a less formal lexicon compared to formal letters, even if both are written by the same author, the same person. Fiction and non-fiction, same. Some fiction writers are also journalists. Now, when they move from fiction to news, definitely their texts will show variation. The lapse of time, the lapse as a cause of variation. Now, the way I wrote 10 years ago is different from the way I write now. The texts that I produced 10 years ago are definitely different from the texts that I produced last year. So how much time has passed between one work and another is also a possible variable to interpret variation. Disguise as a source of variation. Think of an author publishing anonymously. When he publishes anonymously, probably he doesn't observe control, full control over the text compared with when he published using his real name. Think of censorship as an issue of importance. Changes in circumstances. A writer's change in health, domicile, domestic status, etc., can cause variation. Sociolinguistic parameters, factors such as register, relationship with the addressee, age, education, social class, all these contribute to the degree of variation between texts. Authorship markers. The and function words. Now, this has been there in the tradition of examining texts to look for features like the use of the definite article, the prepositions, and other function words. Burroughs found that Jane Austen was very stable in her measurement of these words and could be distinguished from other writers just using these words alone. We'll come to this in terms of explanation. Olson, a well-known forensic linguist, tested the use of the in 16 novels by 4 authors, Austen, Dickens, Hardy, and Eliot. The results show that the constituted 3.4% of the total number of words in Austen's Sense and Sensibility. In contrast, the constituted 6.2% of the total number of words in Hardy's The Trumpet Major. To explain for the reason, Austen devised another test. He calculated the 30 most frequent lexical words in each text, and then compared each text with every other text to see whether each author would use more or less the same high frequency words in one novel as he or she would in another. The results show once again that Austin exhibits the least variation, that is most stable. On the basis of high-frequency lexicon test, Olson claimed that he could attribute Austin's authorship 100% of the time, Hardy 94.4%, Eliot 94.1%, and Dickens 89.1% of the time. Why should some authors be more attributed than others? Again, we need to think of reasons like genre, like text type, more or less similar to those that cause variation within the same writer, not very much different. How courts view evidence in different countries. In the States, we have what is called Rule 702, testimony by experts. There are criteria within this rule. These criteria include knowledge and status of the author. For instance, if the evidence submitted by a particular linguist, for instance, has to be examined within the scope of knowledge of this linguist, or the status of this linguist. For instance, if X submits a statement and Labov, Professor Radwan is not with us, Dr. Rababa, and Professor Labov submitted another
We had known that we have mentioned such a figure,
Then probably
he would have joined us.
Yeah, he has joined us.
Really?
He has?
I don't know.
He told me that he would not be able to attend. That's why I feel free.
He has not joined. He's not with us.
So the status, the status of a linguist, definitely Professor Mahadin enjoys a high status, and Professor Labov enjoys a high status. But I wanted just to say that the status of the person who submits the statement or the observation is important. Peer review. Is this statement in line with the literature? Is it there in a journal? For instance, in our case now, Index Journal. Has it used a scientific method? Is it clear, and so on and so forth? These are variables to be taken into consideration when a witness submits a statement in court. Australia, the emphasis has placed on the requirements to be relevant and reliable. Expert witnesses are obliged to qualify their findings. That is, they had to justify their findings, and they must give reasons for their opinions. But these criteria are not as strict and harsh as they are in the States. England and Wales, we have Lord Wolfe has proposed the appointment of a single expert for both parties to a conflict. This is a controversial concept, and one which is really not acceptable to many solicitors and barristers, and that the court itself should make the appointment. In Jordan, language experts have not yet acquired a well-defined status. They are treated as witnesses and thus proposed by the lawyers and confirmed by the court. This is a move away from authorship, from trademarks to courts. And I have selected a topic of interest, the adjudication of rape cases. A major problem has to be considered here when we talk about law in general and about rape cases in particular, the discrepancy that often exists between laws or law as legislation, as a text, and law as practice. The law stipulates that sexual aggression is illegal in the absence of the affirmative consent of the complainants. Sandy highlights the failure of such a provision in the context of sexist cultural stereotypes. Although our rape laws define, this is Sandy, define the line between sex and rape, these laws are useless if juror attitudes are affected by ancient sexual stereotypes. And another term for stereotypes is mythology or mythologies. In the same vein, Cormack argues that judicial decisions continue to reflect traditional cultural mythologies about rape, not really provisions of the law, but mythologies that exist around and surrounding the law in culture, but not in the text of the law. Cultural myths are encoded within what we call controlling questions of lawyers when cross-examining complainants, witnesses, and defendants. Let us illustrate. Now here we are talking about an ancient sexual stereotype. Until the late 60s of the 20th century in the States, the requirement of utmost resistance was a necessary criterion for the crime of rape. That is, if a woman did not resist a man's sexual advances to the utmost, then rape did not occur. This is mythology. This does not exist now in the law. While this standard is no longer encoded in rape statutes in the States and Canada, it does resonate within the discourse of rape trials, and it does affect and influence both our lawyers and judges alike. Judges' language depends on rape type. As you know, there are two types: stranger rape. If there is a stranger rape, the language of judges in general is the language of assault and violence. But if the rape is acquaintance rape, the language is the language of erotic, affectionate, and consensual sex. Trial discourse is conducted mainly through a series of question-answer sequences. Lawyers can initiate roles, lawyers can initiate questions, can ask questions, but witnesses are obliged to answer questions or run the risk of being sanctioned by the court. There are different types of questions, of control questions. Control refers to the degree to which the questioner can impose his own interpretation on the evidence. Yes, no questions, particularly with a tag, display more control than WH questions. This is an example taken from a conversation and a dialogue in one of the courts. Now the lawyer to the complainant, to the plaintiff, you had intercourse with her, didn't you? This is a substantive proposition. The answer is not easy. Anyway, this question can be, of course, disconfirmed by the addressee. And because of this, there was a move by lawyers to expand control to include questions with presuppositions. These cannot be denied and refuted with the same effectiveness or success. What happened? There's a serious problem.
Probably saying that
the computer is telling you that time is up.
Okay.
Professor Jad, yes. Probably it's telling you that we get like 5 minutes to pray Maghrib. I'm sorry.
Yes, it depends on Ghalib whether he wants us to finish before or would like to give us a break.
I don't know. In Jordan time still we have we still have time to
Okay, so
for Adhan,
I'll move to something else quickly.
I don't know, but in other places, I don't know if it is Maghreb's prayer now.
It is actually, it is in Kuwait. Adhan was called 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
I want to share something else quickly in 2 or 3 minutes. This is, can you see this?
Sure.
Where is it?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Now we
This
can
is-
see
Yes.
the text.
Yes, this is really a monograph produced by 4 students of mine in one of the courses. The students' names are here, and they prepared and produced a monograph of 9 chapters in both English and Arabic on forensic linguistics in Jordan, perspectives of forensic linguistics in Jordan. I just want to give credit to these students, forensic linguistics in Jordan or in the Jordanian context. There's no time for us to go through this, but this is a contribution by the students. Another one is really this one. So I have to stop sharing this and share this with the other one again. Hopefully I will succeed. This is,
Okay. You can see it now. What is forensic linguistics?
no, this is not the one I want really. I have to stop sharing this. You may wish to help me.
Maybe you need to move it to the next.
This one.
Let's make sure that it is working. Is it this one?
This is the one we want.
Is it this one?
Yes, this one.
Now we need to return to sharing the screen. Choose it.
Yeah.
No button.
Yeah.
Which one?
This one.
Yeah, this image.
I can tell.
Professor Aziz, you can pray Maghrib now
No, not this one.
while we are waiting for Professor Jihad to find the slide. Okay.
Okay. These are projects also by students, and this is a list of the term papers they produced. And many of these papers could be revised, and some of them could be published as well. Have you helped me with this one? I just want to show the last thing.
This one.
Yes, I think. No, not this one. No, not this one.
No.
No, not this one. We want this one.
Professor Jihad, I think you can brief us on what
Okay.
you have.
Yes, okay. Okay, there was
so that we can
yes,
open the floor
okay,
for
thank you
questions.
very much. I will. There was a teacher in Ottawa teaching second grade, and this teacher was visited by a supervisor. The supervisor examined the dictations and writings of his students. The supervisor ended up accusing the teacher of doing the work on behalf of the students and publishing this work on the Facebook, claiming that it was the product of the students, when in fact it was, that is the claim of the supervisor, when it was really the product of the teacher. We received this complaint in the forensic linguistics group, and there was a team. I formed a team. The team went to the school. The team for 2 days or 3 days examined the product of the students and ended up writing this report, and we got it published also. We sent it, of course, to the headquarters of Honora, and the teacher was really a very supportive teacher, and he was really innovative, and the product was that of students. Just to tell you, students of second grade, because of training, they write in the same way, they form letters in the same way, and the supervisor thought that because of this neatness, because of this excellent product, thought that it was the product of the teacher. With this, I come to a close. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jihad. Thank you very much for this, the very informative presentation about forensic linguistics. For me, it seems that forensic forensic departments in Jordan and in many other places in the world use their own experts. My question is this true? And or do they use linguists? And this is the first question. The second question is, what about most of the examples that you have given us are related to writing? Do we have examples of examples about speech, for example, examples of how we can identify the speaker's identity?
In fact, I understood the second question, but I couldn't really, probably because of some noise around, I couldn't get
the first. I may repeat the first question. First question is that I think most of the forensic departments in the Arab world, or maybe in the world, they use their own forensic experts, not linguists. Is this true?
Yes, I mean, there are in many cases, departments, whether universities or otherwise, they trust lawyers rather than linguists. And they think that lawyers, because they are specialists in the law and they speak the same language, they can do both jobs. So why to hire or to seek linguists? And I guess, Professor Rababa, if we examine cases, for instance, handled in our university, University of Jordan or elsewhere, we'll find that there are cases where language matters, but because language matters, it is handled by lawyers, and sometimes these are lost because of linguistic issues. And I want to tell you just here about a case of a high-level employee who really retired on the 30th of July. 30th of July. And on the 31st of July, he received a letter from administration telling him that, some time ago, there was an investigation and you were found doing wrong here and there. And because of this, you will be fined. Because you are no longer with us, you will be fined. We'll take money from your fund, yes, provident fund. Now this has a linguistic component. That is, did he leave on the 30th of July or on the 31st of July? If he leaves on the 31st of July, the provision that was used against this employee was, the provision says this applies to staff members. So on the 30th, he was a staff member. On the 31st, he was not a staff member. Yes. And the employee, the defendant, lost the case at the first degree level, at the court. Yes, first degree.
So they rely more on experts,
but he appealed. The employee appealed, did not accept judgment of the first instance court, and went to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals ruled for him and did not look into any details of the issues raised by the administration about his behavior. Just took this sentence, 31st was not with us, and thus we could not issue any disciplinary measure against him. And he won. Yes, this is
all right. So what about the second question, Professor?
The second question, when it comes to spoken language, yes, spoken language. Here we talk about forensic phonetics, and forensic phonetics has made significant advancement because of, thanks to the use of technology. If we get a record of the voice, it can be compared easily and to tell whether the speaker was the person intended or not the person. Remember Bin Laden, when Bin Laden was alive and he issued statements, these statements were taken and examined to see whether really it was an imitation of Bin Laden or Bin Laden. So there are advancements because of lab work in phonetics.
All right, thank you, Professor Jihad. Now I will give the floor to our colleagues if they have any questions, please. Isra, I think. Okay, Isra.
Okay, yeah.
Please,
Isra,
your question.
thank you. First of all, it was a really amazing and beneficial lecture, as usual, Professor Hamdan. As you mentioned before, in Jordan, linguists are treated as witnesses in the court. My question is, according to your own perspective, what is the best solution to activate the role of forensic linguistics in different criminal cases in Jordan?
Thank you very much for this important question. The whole story is about this, really. And I suggest that this requires a long-term plan. First, we need to promote teaching forensic linguistics in our universities. That is, we need to see forensic linguistics in the study plans of our programs. It's not there yet. And then we need also to promote courses of discourse analysis, because after all, what forensic linguists do is that they analyze discourse. So yes, they analyze discourse from different perspectives. So once we promote the learning and teaching and training of discourse and look at discourse as a practical course rather than just a course looking for standards of textuality, for instance, without practicing these standards, without examining these standards. This will help. In addition, of course, we need to cooperate with lawyers, because lawyers are now, as this study by Sakran, as the study has shown, lawyers are reluctant to cooperating with linguists because they think they can do the task, because they look at linguists as rivals rather than colleagues who they can cooperate with. Probably we need this role. And now in our association, APITA, we can play such a role. We can help, we can contribute to this quote-unquote conflict, implicit and hidden conflict. And that's why we used to invite lawyers to our seminars on forensic linguistics in order to strengthen ties with our colleagues and help them see that we play different roles. Their role is to prove that their client is innocent or guilty. Our role is to provide evidence, you see? And we provide this evidence under their umbrella, not outside their umbrella. Yes, because we are experts and they can benefit from our expertise and knowledge.
Thank you, Professor Jihad. Thank you. I think Dr. Darawshe is interested in asking a question. Dr. Darawshe, please.
Yes, يعطيك العافية, Dr. Jihad. It's such a pleasure listening to you and seeing you after like a long time. So my question was concerning the use of technology. Now we are in technological world where we use technology a lot. And I was wondering, like, what's the effect of using technology on the use of language and comprehending language and analyzing language? So I was just like thinking about that and maybe suggesting this for future events.
That's really interesting. If you are thinking of giving a speech on this yourself, you're most welcome. I think technology will continue to have a role, but it depends on the case. Sometimes, yes, if for instance, if the case has to do with oral stuff, then definitely technology will be of great value. For instance, think of technology, think of, and I just want to help you see this by going back to the letters of Prophet Muhammad to the rulers and kings at the time. I mean, these letters, many people try to raise or to criticize the reality, or to sometimes say, no, these letters were altered and changed over the years. And I myself went into this thanks to technology that proved that the ink that was used, yes, was of a special type and could not be reproduced to prove the originality and authenticity of the letters. So there are always cases, there are always chances for technology to prevail, but it depends, you see. When we talk about oral production, definitely technology is of great
Thank you very much. Please, colleagues and friends, if you have any questions.
Yeah, just can I extend on my questions and also address the issue of the use of social media and the way it could impact the way we use the language and analyze it. This is also pertinent to technology as well, and yeah, social media and its effect on linguistics.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Darawshe. Is it a comment or you want a response to it?
I think it's
actually it's a comment and maybe a suggestion, because I saw that you encourage like suggestions for future events. So if Dr. Hamdan wants to comment on it now I'm really interested to hear. And also I would like also to listen about this topic in the future.
Yeah, I think you are fully right. Media is very important. And now it's playing greater and greater roles in our lives. And it can, and we spent some time in the course talking about scammers and about people, old people, young people, trying to tempt people from the other sex using different claims and powers. So this is also a subject for analysis in forensic linguistics. And language here plays a great role in confirming or disconfirming claims by defendants. So yes, particularly Facebook is of great value here as a record of cases where we have violations of laws and rules.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Jihad. Thank you, Dr. Darawshe, for your questions. Any other questions? Dr. Yes, Dr. Aziz?
First of all, I would like to thank Professor Jihad for this very interesting seminar. As usual, he puts forward ideas. One of the very, very interesting ideas that he proposed tonight is the need for having a module, a course on forensic linguistics, because it does not exist, as far as I know, in many universities. At the Arab Open University, we do have something in an advanced linguistics course. Students get exposed to, I mean, that's in discourse analysis. They get exposed to bits and pieces of issues that happened, like in the United States and Australia, where, for example, police would intervene, would manipulate, and we just train students on how to detect, decipher the places like where language is different. It should not be the language, for example, of the accused or the. This is.
Dr. Aziz, I think
Departments.
there is a problem with the internet. Okay, now we can hear you.
You can hear me now? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I was saying that, like, yes, there is a need to have such a module. Also, if it is possible, like for attorneys, for lawyers, they should have a module. If they do not accept, like Professor Jihad said, they treat like linguists as rivals. So probably there could be a suggestion that faculty of Sharia, faculty of law should have a module in forensic linguistics where linguists should teach this course, in which lawyers should be trained on how to detect like language problems. This is important, and I think they should not be licensed. They should not become sworn lawyers before getting exposed to this area. This is just a suggestion, but anyway, we could say a whole lot about this very interesting domain. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Professor Jihad, for this enlightening, very educational seminar. And thanks, Professor Rababia, for your excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Aziz. Thank you very much for your points. It's a very good suggestion, actually, and I think it will work well. But I think we need to get approvals from different, departments or colleges to have this kind of cooperation, as you suggested. Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Sana.
May I just respond to Professor
Would you like to respond? Yes, please.
Yeah, because
after that, please, Professor Jihad, after that, we will have Dr. Sana has a question.
Thank you very much, Professor Aziz Thabit, for this very valuable and informative intervention. And I look at it as a way out, yes, to argue against this sort of quote-unquote conflict that may exist between linguists and lawyers. And I think, yes, your suggestion can work. And it can also work in another way if we think of joint teaching. That is the same course, for instance, the course I'm teaching, forensic linguistics, part of it could be taught by a lawyer who is also interested in language. And gradually, yes, we can establish a sort of partnership, yes, rather than having this rival relationship. And yes, you are right. They can also add a component to forensic courses in their departments. Definitely they have something like this: forensics in law, forensics in Sharia, forensics in medicine. Yes, they can add a language component. We can help, we can talk together and add a component, a linguistic component, no matter how small or large it is, but it is useful to have this component, and we can offer something similar in our courses. Thank you, Professor Aziz, very useful.
Thank you. Dr. Sana.
Yes, good evening, Professor Hamdan and everyone. It's not a question as much as it's a thankful word, really, for our University of Jordan and this course, forensic linguistics, as being one of the PhD students of this course. Really, it's a chance for having this practical side of linguistics, which is goes beyond theories, and it helps a lot in forensic, in law, and on all aspects of life. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your points and your comment.
I can see Professor Fawaz.
Professor Fawaz,
I can see
how are you, Professor Fawaz?
I would like to welcome you, Professor Abdul Haq.
You're welcome.
It's an honor for us to have you with us this evening.
Thank you, dearest colleagues. This is really a very interesting and lovely evening to have all of you. I can see Professor Murtada.
Professor Murtada. Oh, yeah, that's great, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like also to offer my great appreciation to Professor Jihad. He's our mentor in linguistics, a dedicated scholar, a badly needed course. I did agree with Sana and also you, Professor, when you say that forensic linguistics is one of the most recent discipline of linguistics, where especially in what you call al-jara'im al-electroniya. If you talk about this area, criminology, you need an evidence, and this is either recorded or seen or written, and this can be used easily. And I will also hint out to an evidence which was used, I think, in 1998, when the plane flying from the state to Egypt, totally distracted, and they were claiming that the pilot was committing a suicide. But when they got the black box, the last statement uttered by the pilot was "Tawakkaltu ala Allah," and whoever said "Tawakkaltu ala Allah" does not indicate that he has committed a suicide. This indicates that something wrong with the plane, and that was the evidence which was used to pay for the yes. So I think this is a very interesting and a badly needed area. And if we need to update and to modernize our disciplines in the field of linguistics, an area which is part of even language planning. I think Murtada Baqir were not happy with language planning, but we are not planning the language. This is an area where language engineers are using the linguistic evidence to be used in court. This space which people think that they are free to say whatever they would like to say without being penalized or being even brought to court. So this is, you are ringing a very serious bell, Professor Jihad, and no wonder, and I cannot agree more with what you have presented. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Ghalib in Sharjah. We miss you a lot in Jordan, and I am also.
Thank you very much. Miss you a lot. Miss you a lot.
Our disciples, I call them, because indeed this is our linguistics tribe, the tribe that helped to build up on the discipline and to add more and more. And again, from the bottom of my heart, my warmest greeting to you, to Murtada Baqir, our old linguistic father, and from Canada, and to Brother Ghalib, and to these very nice, beautiful ladies in linguistics, the linguists. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor.
Can I just make a quick comment on Professor
Yes,
Abdul
please, Professor Fawaz. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Professor Fawaz, your words are precious. And particularly when you alluded to this pilot whose plane crashed, and the last statement was "Tawakkaltu ala Allah."
Yes.
We spent a week in this course on suicidal notes.
You're great.
Suicide notes is a genre and has its own features. To test this, two of my students worked on this. They asked young Jordanians to assume that they were in X position, difficult position, and that they decided to commit suicide, and asked them to write their last letter. Yes. So we worked on what we call, Professor Fawaz and dear colleagues, we worked on what is called forged suicide notes.
Yep.
And I assure you that a Muslim and an Arab who decides to commit suicide, that is, if it's genuine, will not end up with tawakkaltu ala Allah. So this is not part of the genre.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a linguist examine this without come up with a totally different interpretation. Professor Murtada,
Thank you.
I'm really happy to see you with us.
Thank you very much, Professor Radwan. Sorry, Professor Radwan is not with us. Professor Jihad. Now, we have 3 more questions. Let us be brief, please. So, Dr. Rima, please.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Hamdan, for this informative seminar. I quickly ask a question. Do you think, Dr. Hamdan, that we should have different methodological approaches investigating the legal texts, whether in spoken or written text in one perspective, or standard language texts, or spoken, let's say, vernacular texts? So, should we have different methodological approaches investigating different types of legal texts? And thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
You mean whether it is oral or written?
Oral or written, standard or vernacular?
Thank you very much. A quick answer. Definitely we will be using our scientific method, because we claim that linguistics is a science, so we will continue to use our scientific techniques, but we can use a combination of techniques really in this course, in forensic linguistics. We can use, for instance, statistics. This is interdisciplinary. We need statistics for features, for instance. I think you still remember the statistics I cited about different features in novels. So we need statistics. We need all techniques we use in discourse analysis. We need particularly sharp observation. We need critical thinking. All these combine together to contribute to the improvement of our work and to yielding something worthwhile for the public and for the official authorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now thank you, Dr. Rima. Thank you, Professor Jihad. Now I think Dr. Muhammad Ajalin, I think he has a question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmah.
In fact, it's a comment, it's not a question.
Okay, good.
But before I start, I want to thank Professor Hamdan for this wonderful presentation of forensic linguistics. And my comment is that he mentioned something about Yahum Malali. And in this vein, I would like to say that nowadays Jordanians resort to use what's called linguistic devices in order to keep themselves apart from the legislations of the electronic crimes. I mean, the linguistic devices that lead to the semantic deviation, okay? And this is my comment. Thank you all. Thank you, Professor Ghalib.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Now the question is, okay, Dr. Susan, please.
Yes, thank you so much. And assalamu alaikum jami'an. Thank you, Dr. Jihad, for this quite illuminating presentation. Hello, Dr. Fawaz. How are you?
I'm fine.
My dear
so
professor.
Happy to see you, Allah. Thank you. We missed you a lot.
Likewise, wallah. Likewise, Dr. Fawaz. I have a comment actually, and that is, I feel that we are in dire need of interdisciplinary courses at our higher education institutions. When we think about, for example, the latest or the most recent defamation case in Hollywood, which drew actually the attention of the world to some actors which were on trial, The court case, they brought in forensic psychiatrists, they brought in, different witnesses. But, when we, for example, I've also written in the chat that, that we are in dire need of courses which students of law and students of Sharia should take, courses in forensic linguistics, but at the same time, we need, for example, forensic psychology. We need criminal psychology, because all of this actually is a combination. You cannot use forensic linguistics and not have any background, for example, in psychology. And that's why they have a branch. A branch in the 1980s, I think, was initiated in criminal psychology, which was not there before. And a section of the police actually, they specialize in criminal psychology in order to understand, the criminal mind. So so that's what I wanted to say. And I think that would actually excite our students, instead of, being or receiving all this theoretical knowledge. This would be the application part, which actually would make courses exciting and would link the courses to everyday life. And that would actually, I'm sure, would make our higher education institutions and courses much more loved and liked by our students. Thank you so much, Dr. Jihad, once again.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Munir. Dr. Munir?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, please.
No, say something. Okay, you have the floor. Okay, we'll talk later. It doesn't matter.
Pardon? Yes, Dr. Munir.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor, and thank you, Dr. Professor Jihad. A very quick question on one of the points you made, which is how to promote forensic linguistics in the future. And you mentioned one of the things we need to do as academics, which is to teach forensic linguistic courses. My question is whether you think this is going to be enough, bearing in mind that courts and lawyers today can benefit from forensic linguistics by using visualization tools and software programs, where forensic documents can be analyzed through visualization tools, and they will not need, or they do not need the help and the expertise of forensic linguists. So I don't know what you think about this, if you bear in mind that courts and lawyers consider documents confidential, and they can analyze forensic documents using the recent visualization tools and software programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Ghalib, can I have a question?
All right. Who else?
Murtada Baqir.
Murtada, please, because I cannot see here. Okay. Yes, Dr. Murtada, please, Professor.
Thank you.
First of all,
thank you, Professor Rababa. Please, and thanks to Professor Hamdan for his informative lecture. I would like to extend my tribal greetings to all the members of the linguistic tribe, to borrow Dr. Fawaz's terms. I cannot overstress the importance of introducing such non-canonical interdisciplinary, if one could use that term, courses into our programs. Yes, there's no way to overemphasize that. I think that is important. I really came here. I wanted to attend the course. To attend this presentation, to know what kind of things, what kind of issues, what kind of difficulties Professor Hamdan went through in the preparation for this course, and the kind of feedback that he got his students. I know he is interested.
I don't know, something wrong went with,
Yeah, I think so.
I think he has a problem with the internet connection.
Probably, yes.
Professor Murtada, are you with us?
But
Look, Professor Jihad, can you hear him?
I couldn't really get the point
So
because of
I think he has an internet
technical.
problem.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
back.
because-
He's back.
He's back. Hello, Professor Murtada?
It seems that the mic is off. His mic is off.
yeah, now my mic is on.
All right.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
That's fine. That is fine.
Am I back?
Yes,
Yeah, you
yes,
are.
sure.
Yeah.
You are back.
Okay. I think there's
The technical problem persists.
Right, right. But I think his point is clear. He's emphasizing the importance of introducing a course or
Yes,
that's right.
like an interdisciplinary course
right.
that could be taught by maybe people from Sharia, people from the
Law.
departments of law, yes, and the Department of Linguistics or English. So I
Right,
think
right.
this is okay. Yes, Professor Murtada.
I was really talking about non-canonical courses, non-standard courses, the usual type of courses that you find in linguistic departments like syntax, phonology, discourse analysis, or what have you. Particular courses that deal with particular points. Take Professor Abdul Haq's work on language planning. I think a course in language planning would be as important as another course, let's say, in historical linguistics. As I was saying, I really wanted to ask about the about the kind of issues that are involved in the teaching.
All right, Professor Murtada, I think your point is clear.
Maybe ask Professor Murtada to switch off his video. Then
Professor Murtada, can you switch your video off, switch your camera off, and I think
I don't want to put you. I don't want to put you in more trouble with this kind of connection. So thanks a lot again.
Thank you, Professor Murtada. But Professor Murtada, I think your point is very clear. You are for producing or introducing non-canonical courses, and also you are in favor of introducing a course in language planning. This is what we got, right?
Language planning.
Okay, Professor, I think I will give the floor to Dr. Jihad to respond to this comment, please, Professor Jihad.
Thank you very much. In fact, teaching this course requires lots of effort, and I want to report on part of what I did to teach this course. You know, this course is new, has not been taught earlier. So I have to, for instance, the first problem was to think of books, which books I would use. And I decided at the beginning, 2 years ago, to start with classics. That is with Osland, for instance, the most important linguist in the field, and his book, Forensic Linguistics. And then I discovered that I have to fly a bit higher. And this year, I used this book, Language as Evidence, and another book. It's a collection of articles, and it's very recent. And this simply means for me, I had to learn and to spend hours and hours learning, just the way my students learn, in order to be up to the level of teaching this course. And I have also to think of how I relate this course to other courses and to other branches of knowledge. For instance, my colleague, Dr. Susan Ramadan, talked about this interdisciplinary nature of the course. And just to highlight here that, well, one of the things that we discussed in class was those writers of those playwrights and novelists, those who narrate. You see, they are known for their narration. They bring in stories and so on and so forth. How close these stories and narration to reality? That is the diversity of narration, where we can cooperate with our colleagues in the literature, group. When they relate that someone was suffering, someone decided to do this or to do that, and all these emotions that are brought into the narration, how much are they real? How much real they are? Can we study these narrations from a forensic perspective and see whether they are mere creations or not mere creations? They touch on issues of soul and spirit and passion, and that those are great writers because they were able to understand this psyche of human beings and were able to reflect it, as Shaykh wal-Bahar and all other great novels and narrations. This is a venue for analysis and for collaboration. And think of things of history. Think of Khalid ibn al-Walid and the story of Malik bin Nuwayra when he was arrested. Adfi'u asrakum. This dialectal issue, Adfi'u asrakum, does it really mean that just keep them warm, or it really meant kill them? And the guard said, no, in our dialect, it means just kill them. And Khalid said, no, it means because it was cold, just try to keep them warm. Sha'ar Abdullah bin Jahm, who came and stood before Al-Mutawakkil and praised Al-Mutawakkil إنك كالتيس في مقارعة الخطوب وكالكلب في الوفاء. And Al-Mutawakkil was about to kill him because of his language and because of this use of language. When someone stepped in and said, no, this is his environment. And a year later, when Abdullah ibn al-Jahm enjoyed the Rasafa and the river, Dr. Baqir بيعرف الأماكن much better than me, and came back, هي عيون المها بين الرصافة والجسر جلبنا الهوى من حيث أدري ولا تدري ولا أدري. And a nice poem, a great poem, was produced because of the impact of the environment on language. And this we can relate all these things to forensic linguistics, and we can find a way. And back to Professor Abdel Haq, because he's a president of a university and can make decisions. And I know how brave he is, how much brave he is. We can, why not think of a diploma, a joint diploma between 2 or 3 departments for this interdisciplinary course, then Sharia, Hukuk, and languages. And we can have a diploma. And many people would love to have this diploma rather than a master's and help them find jobs in this very difficult world. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Dr. Bakr.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Jihad. Do you have any other questions, dear colleagues? If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Professor Fawaz, do you have something?
No, thank you. Thank you
would
indeed.
like to add? All right. I think we have to come to conclusion and to conclude our forum on forensic linguistics. I would like to thank Professor Jihad for this very informative presentation, and all of us, have learned from it. And I think all of us have agreed that there should be like an interdisciplinary course at our universities, and maybe this course could be taught by people of Sharia, people of law, and people of linguistics or linguists. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank all the audience, Professor Fawaz, Professor Murtada, and all our colleagues and friends. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Dina, thank you very much for organizing this event and the follow-up. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
حياتي عمر بن الفلفل. تحياتي.
دكتور تحياتي. شكرا. سعدنا بكم جميعا. يصعب يعني ذكر جميع الاسماء، لكن كل باسمه ولقبه وموقعه. شكرا جزيلا.
للاسف ما اقدرش اذكر الكل يعني.
نعم. عانك الله دكتور غالب.
الله يبارك فيك وشكرا لكم.
شكرا جزيلا
بروفيسور عزيز، شكرا لك وجودك معنا. Thank you very much.
يعطيكم العافيه دكتور غالب ودكتور جهاد.
كمل البيت الشعري.
يا هلا والله.
عيون المها بين الرصافه والجسر، جلبنا الهوى من حيث ادري ولا ادري، ونكمل البيت للدكتور جهاد لانه امتعنا فيها. جلبنا لي الشوق القديم ولم اكن سلوت، ولكن زدنا جمرا على جمري. فاليوم محاضره الدكتور جهاد زادت جمر على جمر.
جميل، يعطيك العافيه.
شكرا يا الحبيب. شكرا.
هاي اثر البيئه على اللغه.
شكرا.
باذن الله. السلام عليكم.
لا يجاب.
يعطيكم العافيه.
شكرا.
السلام عليكم. في امان الله.
الى اللقاء في الشهر القادم. شكرا.
السلام عليكم.
شكرا.